Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. I have back on the show Amy Palacios. She's on here with Francesca Amato, and Amy was last on October 30th. Season 3, episode 145. Now, when Francesca Amato and Hannah Morris they were on with Natalia Dalton last week, which was October 29th. Season 3, 144 is the episode. I welcome you both to the show. And, Amy, I've interviewed you before. And how did you come to meet Francesca and everything she's helping you with?
I actually saw her on Facebook with like her glowing in the dark and then I saw again with the Congress. She had us all like do little, we called into a line and we got 7 minutes to speak to Congress for like 8 hours. I think that we did a bunch of little blips of all of the stories around the US, very similar stories of injustices.
Mhm.
So I, started off, I met her that way. And then when I saw more about what she did with the ADA advocacy, then I asked for a meeting with her and her team.
Well, I'm glad. Did it take long to get in contact when you did contact Fran?
No, I think she talked to me pretty quickly afterwards, and I got in. There was a lot of people with that 8 hours, so we had some time, spinning in there. But I had talked to her between the glowing in the dark thing and I wanted, I think I even wanted some T-shirts that said I have multiple T-shirts with the glowing in the dark, women glowing in the dark. So, yeah, so we just have similar goals and similar just with our faith. And I just I like that about, having a different approach of why we're going to be able to stand for justice this time is, we have God on our side.
Now we have to. This is a spiritual battle of warfare. I don't know
Amen.
how else to put it.
True. Very true.
Hmm. Hmm. And Fran, you've been helping Amy. For how long have you been helping Amy?
I believe it's just been a couple of months now, maybe like 2 months. But the Mothers Glowing in the Darkness event, which was done over the summer in Washington, D.C., where we literally, lit up glow sticks at Lincoln Memorial. But we went in and we had we didn't get the congressional hearing room this year. Something happened. And instead we just went in and we spoke with different Congress members in their offices, and different groups of moms went in just because they couldn't fit everyone. They were still doing the COVID
Yeah.
limitation, so to speak. But then, yeah, it was amazing because I was going to try to do like a 2-hour brief with the mothers that weren't able to come to Washington, D.C. And it's literally a command to Congress, which is a legal right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very disheartening because, they were very good while we were in the meetings, and we had very well-spoken, presentable mothers with the same, basically different faces, but similar stories, clean background mothers. Report abuse and you're automatically an abuser. I'm sorry, you're automatically a liar or crazy or both. That's the narrative. And you can see that that's not true with any of these moms. So I figured let's do a briefing that I can show them even more of these women. And I was overwhelmed. Like Amy said, it went over 8 hours, and I could have kept going. I could have went for days on end. They just kept coming and coming. I felt bad because I couldn't fit everybody in. And of course, all members of Congress have received this this live interactive, basically pre-recorded, right raw though live presentation of all the cases. And like I said, we went in person as well, and it was a beautiful event. But they are now not even responding. They're not even responding, and it's just, it is what it is. But I like to always leave everything with a positive outcome though, because, that may appear negative, but as I've been doing this for over 15 years, we are seeing a lot of positive results, which I think we can probably talk about with Amy as well today. We are seeing a lot of positive results. I'm the person that literally coined the phrase kind of abolish and arrest, and I can get into that.
Mhm.
I child predator services for CPS, or child pedophilia services for CPS, because I don't know where they can even have the audacity to call it a protective agency.
Yeah.
And these are our end goals. But obviously, I always say, when your children and or you, because it's a package deal, are in the clutches of the enemy's camp, we have to go into the enemy's camp and use a lot of wisdom.
Mhm. Mhm.
How do
Right.
we rescue these families? How do we rescue them? And so that's where that's where, over my 15 years experience, I've been researching, and I work with a forensic expert, Victoria Gribben, and basically she's who trained me, and I eat, breathe, and sleep it, basically. So I am an expert in the Americans with Disability Act, which we can definitely delve into today, which we need to delve into. And I believe that when Hannah and I are back on, I think that's going to, Marianne, I think that's going to be a phenomenal show, because she'll be able to add her flavor to it, which is her double masters, and how it affects education, how it affects IEPs, how it affects, learning disabilities, and so on and so forth, and kind of tag teaming on that to show the viewers how this negatively impacts children, adults, and then society on a whole.
Mhm.
But in
Most
the how invoking the Americans with Disability Act on all families does change things. And I think that's where Amy can really talk about how she's been impacted and how she's been treated until I came into her case with her. I think that's encouraging to the viewers to see.
Amy, how has your case been going? Because I know you have 2 ex-husbands being represented by the same attorney.
Right. Well, at times, there's actually a court order that my first ex-husband cannot be represented by the second ex. I mean, by that that same faulty lawyer. She even defined out, when she gave me my last motion, or my order, she wrote out that H.J. White Sr. shall not have any further involvement with DHS child support matter bearing the file number of my case, due to potential conflict, animosity reflected in the defendant's dismissed motions. That county attorney of Cabarrus County shall assign separate counsel for this matter and any future child support enforcement, establishment, or modification of hearing. And that was my October 3rd, both on August 15th, where I didn't have Francesca, but then October 3rd, I should have had Francesca. And there's been 3 different judges, so I can just tell you the difference. The first judge was Cloninger under child support, and this Jay White guy was standing in and out of the courtroom right next to Goldberg, which was the represented county attorney that was in his place, but he was supposed to not be a part of the hearing. But even on all my paperwork that says the amounts I have to pay, everything, it all still says Jay White's name all over it. He's been sending stuff to me, or my work, or any of that kind of stuff. And even my work is like, this is an official paperwork. This is not from the state. This is just this random lawyer telling me to pay that. I can't take that out of your check until I get official paperwork from the state. So he is not supposed to be on anything. I just read that part, insert from that, but he's still doing it. On October 3rd, they didn't let Francesca in my hearing. Cloninger literally told me that an ADA, and I'll let her speak to this, but he said that ADA accommodations don't have anything to do with child support, but they kidnapped my kids and then having me pay him $3,000 a month. It's part of the legal abuse, but yet they didn't want me to have any kind of defense there. And it was a full-blown attack that day on October 3rd that they didn't let her in. He had a social worker from DSS standing next to him, this Goldberg, and that was this other attorney that came in. And then Jay White was in and out of the courtroom, and even at the end of the verdict, walked across the courtroom, starts screaming and saying that they needed to add back child pay to the hearing. But Goldberg came to my hearing as a testifier for my ex-husband, Matthew Bledsoe, on October 25th, and Fran can witness to this, and sat on stand and said that Jay White was never in the room. He testified that Jay White was not even there on October 3rd, that he was there on October 15th in and out of the room, and he was talking to him and everything. But he says that he was not even there on October 3rd, which was a blatant lie. So, I mean, so that's how my ex-husband got out of contempt of using Jay White, was because they just bring in other lawyers to lie for them. So obviously they've probably lied to the Department of Justice, which they violated the ADA accommodations on the 3rd. And it was a huge violation for Jay White to be in and out of the courtroom, distracting and intimidating and attacking. And so I really want Fran to speak on why the ADA accommodations should have been used in the child support, and why they're in a direct violation for not letting me have those accommodations.
So there's a couple of things going on here. So with the first one, with the child support, it's not funny, okay, but I almost want to laugh at the ignorance behind saying that your ADA accommodation does not apply here. Because and I'm going to tell you guys a few federal codifications and so on and so forth. So I'm not just an expert in the Americans with Disability Act, but I'm an expert in domestic violence, child abuse, and the Americans with Disability Act, and how the three work together, okay? How one affects the other very clearly. And then again, obviously we're going to get more in depth with this with Hannah when we discuss on the later show coming up. How it affects school and so on. Mm-hmm. But to say that is a direct violation of the ADA. It is absolutely ludicrous to say something that would be like saying, and let's put it in like more layman's terms, that would be like saying your ADA accommodations or whatever you need under the ADA with any sort of disability works in ShopRite, but it doesn't work in Hannaford. Like, that's just absurd. Okay. If you are in a wheelchair, you need a ramp to go into Hannaford grocery store, just like you would need a ramp to go into ShopRite grocery store. You would need a ramp to go into a courtroom. You would need a ramp to go into child support court. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make a difference. That is ludicrous, right, and is a severe federal violation under the ADA. Now, the good thing, and I think we might have mentioned this on the last show, again, we'll talk more in depth about it and more thorough when we're together, but they have just recently, I file thousands upon thousands of non-compliance complaints to the Department of Justice, okay? Mm-hmm. In some states, because there'd be a higher concentration of violations, like right now, Ulster County Family Court they would get an F+. Mm-hmm. But yet I just did Brooklyn Court, and the judge was highly respectful. The judge asked me if he violated the ADA in any way. The same thing happened in Amy's court the other day. Same thing happened in a court in Virginia with a chief justice. And then you've got the other judges that tell you can't advocate for your client, when that is insane. Okay. And they're ignorant of the ADA, and that's putting it nicely. But in July of 2022, which just passed this summer, the U.S. Department of Justice website just highlighted and actually put it on their website. It clearly says the date, that courts, which I will actually tell you the federal laws behind that, are mandated and must follow the Americans with Disability Act. And that basically, in essence, what it says is that parents with disabilities cannot be discriminated against. In other words, you cannot take their children because they have a disability. And one of the things that attorneys have done to families is, don't mention that you have a disability. That's a discrimination right there. And shame on any lawyer that would say that. Don't mention that you have a disability. Don't mention, because they're going to take your children. They cannot, by federal law, take your children because you have what I call invisible disabilities. Now, the technical assistance line on the Department of Justice, obviously a judge can get through that immediately. The layperson will get through it. There's certain timeframes to call during the day, and you can verify any federal codification under the ADA of what the courts are supposed to adhere to. Doesn't matter if they're child support, it doesn't matter, it does not matter, okay? Now, what has happened over the decades with the family court arena is that they have not followed the ADA at all whatsoever. They are very behind. So now we are holding them accountable. And in the interim of holding them accountable, you're holding even the corruption that occurs within the Department of Justice accountable. But I can also say, because I'm like a corruption buster and an exposure of this and exposing the judges and so on and so forth, you know, I did honor 3 separate judges, not for a lot of their decisions, but for the fact that they did honor the ADA. And so if you see here, I've got, you know, numerous certifications, and one of the organizations is NOVA, National Organization for Victims Assistance, whereby one of the instructors there, and some of the people that sign these are chief judges. He is now putting together something where I will be training judges and encourage me to call the courts that are actually honoring the ADA. So it went in 2 different directions with Amy the other day, but I had to honor that judge because I'll tell you a couple things that happened during court with Amy, which I found very appropriate. And we'll kind of talk more about that without going too far over. But now I'll be training judges by bringing in judges that are effectively, administering the ADA and properly, making sure that they're not making any errors and mistakes. If they remedy it right away, of course, we would not need to report that, because we need to work on the 98% that are not protecting the rights of the families and so on. Now, here's one that really ties them up in a knot. And what that would be is court orders are to be in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Judges and attorneys will tell you no, but I'm telling you now, 100%. And what they emphasized on the website is that you cannot discriminate, and that you must be, it says it very clearly, courts must be in compliance with the ADA. So basic language.
The order wasn't in compliance. So the other judge that she's talking about, Christy Wilhelm, she was trying to maintain the ADA. She did like the recording appropriately, let her come in and out and speak to me as she was supposed to, and those kinds of things. But her order from February 11th, 2022 was out of compliance with ADA, because it said this paragraph. It said, defendant shall obtain a comprehensive clinical psychiatric mental health assessment. That and that's not the part that's, that's part of one, is violating the ADA by saying that I have to keep doing mental health assessments when I've already done and passed many. And then she says she is to provide a written report stemming from the assessment to the plaintiff's counsel no later than May 1st, 2022. The defendant is to allow all recommended treatment, further education, assessments deemed appropriate by the mental health professional who completes the assessment. So 2 violations were, they're making me repetitively do these psych evaluations because they're lying. And then when I say they're lying, they want to say I'm crazy, right? Blatantly lying. And then they want me to give these records to his counsel, which is against the ADA violation. And then the crazy thing is I did that. So I've kind of jumped through hoops where I had talked about it on my other one. I did it in Mecklenburg County. The only thing I was ever diagnosed with was a questionable PTSD from him kidnapping my kids. Like the reason for that behavior was because he kidnapped my kids. So actually he's the problem, right? Give me back my kids and I don't have any of that stress anymore. It goes away, right? So then it also in this order, this recent order, so we went with there was 1 successful hearing out of the 3 that I've had since she's been on my case. And that was with Christy Wilhelm, where I was supposed to be heard on my kids. They continued it to February, but they heard on contempt. He was trying to put me in jail for not doing a psych evaluation. He already did that in Mecklenburg County, but in Cabarrus County, he didn't get away with it because of Francesca. He probably would have put me in jail that day if I hadn't had an ADA advocate, because this order says I have to do this stuff and give the records to her. So then also I had filed for contempt because he hadn't let me have my kids on multiple weekends. He even said out loud in court that those were my weekends. I testified and my husband testified that I didn't have the kids that weekend. And he just said another lie. I recall them going when they didn't, right? So his lie is finding a fact, and then me saying you're a liar is, I'm crazy and I'm tired of it. And literally she did say that I was going to be in contempt of court for calling Goldberg a liar because he blatantly lied on stand. Me and my husband were there. You don't think I know what Jay White looks like? You don't think I know what he looks like? You don't think I know what he talks like? You don't think I know who he is by now? This has been 2 years of it. And like they want to act like you're hallucinating and delusional. That was a total different person talking. Literally said on stand that it was a total different person. And they even write this in the order that it's a total different white, because there's only like 7 different whites in that family. But on the one success that they did give me, like a lawyer, for the contempt from before with this $85,000. He did lose. I don't know if this is directly, I forgot to tell Francesca this, is directly related to the Department of Justice complaint, but he did lose his spot 3 weeks ago because he was over all the Department of Justice complaints for Cabarrus County. Jay White was filtering them. So I had an open complaint, and I'm complaining for 18 months on him, and he's filtering his own complaints until 3 weeks ago. Somebody else is over it now. I mean, how is that effective? Someone in his firm, Hartzell, sits, on the bar. Someone in his firm, they also at times have even represented the Department of Justice. Their firm has the county contract. I think that might have been what he lost. I'm not sure. But he's still over DSS child support. He's still over DSS child welfare. He's still over the school board, and he's acting as the biggest criminal lawyer in that town and doing civil stuff. So he had a part in my kidnapping of my older kids, okay, and then passed it along to Donna Johnson. But what they do is have multiple hearings at the same day at the same time. Before Francesca came along on August 15th, he had scheduled 3 hearings in 3 different courtrooms at the same date and time.
Yeah, I remember that.
Jay White.
I remember you telling me that. And the thing is that I did a second after the first, where they denied me to come into the child support. I did a second letter with all the violations on it, and then the violation amount, which would be $75,000 per violation, up to $150,000 per violation under the ADA. And I think that did scare them because that was within the 3-week period. So then now he's gone. So like that's very encouraging to those, I believe, that are going to see this interview, because we are making an impact. And it's not an easy thing, because you're dealing with a corrupt court system, you're dealing with corrupt attorneys, you're dealing with corrupt child attorneys and guardians ad litem, you're dealing with corrupt portions of the Department of Justice. But now stuff is happening, because what I've discovered in the Department of Justice is that although there's corruption, because there's people infiltrated in the mix here and there, like you said, he's the one that's kind of blocking the truth to come forward, because he's protecting his own motives there. Others there that are not all bad, so to speak, and things are happening, obviously. And your case clearly showed it. Yours and many other cases that I've been dealing with showed it. It was interesting at the one part where I saw the judge's face, because I could see, we did it hybrid. So she went in and I was virtual, and I'm virtual a lot for those that I do this nationwide. So I can't be in California and then be in Virginia, in the same day. I don't like to show off. I could do it. No, I'm just kidding. But, but truthfully, I do a lot virtually, which is an ADA, very reasonable accommodation. Here's something that I want to let the audience know that's really, really important, is that if you need an ADA accommodation, and I do this like I said, nationwide. They are supposed to comply with the virtual assistance part of it. That also falls under expanded domestic violence laws. The judge does not have the authority, and they are convinced that they do. Okay. And this is a lovely thing. They do not have the authority to grant or deny your ADA accommodation. They are loosely taking the interpretation of the word reasonable accommodation, and they're turning that into some kind of a decision-making process for the judge. It is what it is. They
Right.
have to or deny your wheelchair, your seeing eye dog, your emotional support dog, your ramp. But when you have post-traumatic stress or depression or acute PTSD or what have you, these are all qualified federally protected class members under the ADA, and don't mess with them.
Mhm.
It does not make you less intelligent. It does not make you a bad parent. Matter of fact, you can be as smart as Einstein and have some sort of a psychological injury. If you were hit by a drunk driver because you were standing somewhere, it's not your fault. You've been physically injured. That doesn't take your parenting away from you.
Mhm.
How dare somebody's parenting away from them because they've been injured psychologically, which most people have.
Yes.
And most people, doesn't matter how high or low your IQ is, most people have some sort of a learning disability. And it could be something very simple, like I space out because I'm being traumatized right now. That causes me to have a learning disability at that moment, if you think about that, because I cannot grasp what's happening around me. I need to calm down. I need
Mhm.
to calm, so to speak. And a SPECT scan is going to show that of the brain. That doesn't mean that you're always spaced out. Okay. That just means in that moment of trauma, you are now spaced out, so to speak. And now you go back to normal. And that's where you need your equal footing and grounding in the court, so to speak, so that you understand what's happening, so that you can respond. There are numerous things that happen within court settings that are completely illegal. Okay. And when you have somebody like myself there, it's good because it will hold the judges accountable to that level of gold standard. Okay, that they're not allowed to touch. They cannot make that decision. I can't grant or deny you having an ADA advocate. I also cannot grant or deny having me speak in court, in which I did fully and freely in Amy's court, others' courts. And then other judges will say, she can be here and watch, but she can't advocate.
That's what happened. That's what happened my second court hearing with Judge Knutz just this week. They just randomly filed a motion to compel with my second ex-husband, saying I needed more financial information. You know, all this financial attack. I have 3 different court orders based on Jay White getting $15,000 for him to pay him, $70,000 to pay my second ex-husband that beat me up and was in jail for 6 months, beat my sister up, has 2 convictions of criminal assault, and has had even beat police officers up, walking around the jail naked, painting the walls with poop, the floors with poop. But he got to sit on stand and say what our assets were, and I had to pay for half of it, even though I had a 2-inch thing of discovery saying that my debt was more than my assets.
Mhm.
Jay White refused my discovery and said I couldn't use it.
I am in
And
shock
so,
that you just said about this. This is an off topic, but there was a woman a couple of years ago that used to do that in North Carolina too. Is there something in North Carolina that
yeah, North Carolina's horrible.
they
Yeah.
go to jail and they defecate in the jail cell and spread it all over the walls?
I
She
don't
did the
know.
same thing.
Maybe Jay White told him to do that, because Jay
Mhm.
White deemed him in and
Fascinating.
out of competency. Jay White deemed my ex-husband Brad Urban in and out of competency 3 times in 3 years to get him out of criminal charges, but yet said he was competent to have children.
No,
He
this is
does. He only has supervised visitation with his parents. So essentially, I have a court order with his parents every
right,
other weekend. So
right,
really, I have an order with his parents, right? If I
right,
were to ask for child support, his parents, because they're the interveners, and both of
right.
them are the interveners, would be the ones that have to pay me child support. So to counteract this crazy amount of $70,000, I'm having to file for sanctions and child support because I'm not paying him. I'm not paying him, and I'm
Oh
not
no,
paying.
it's
And they tried to
great.
on October 5th. I mean, August 15th, they tried to put me in jail 30 days for not paying the lawyer. and 30 days for not paying him. Well, it's a total of $85,000. And then the lawyer, Jay White, had written a letter. Well, all this whole $85,000, and I gave it to court, you can actually pay the whole thing to me. Well, even if they court ordered me to pay the whole $85,000 to Jay White, they cannot put me in jail for not paying lawyer fees. It's like debtors. I've heard like debtors prison. I'm a medical provider. I can't put somebody in jail for not paying me for my services. But they just like literally when I talked to Cynthia Everson, which is the lawyer they gave me because they were going to put me in jail that day. And then instead they gave me a lawyer, but I got to pick off the list. I think she's probably the only not crooked person in Cabarrus County. So I knew her from other things. So I picked her, and she's got a faith, and she's religious person, like not religious, but she believes in God, and she has some kind of like, you know, I know she has a backbone. So, you know, they used her to like block me going to jail that day, that she's going to be, you know, my lawyer that they choose. But the problem is like, even her, she's like, everyone is like, there's no fighting against Jay White. Even the bailiffs in the courtroom are like, literally when my ex-husband stood on stand and threatened to kill me on stand in front of 5 officers and a judge. And then we went back to, they gave me 1 year restraining order. We went back with Jay White as his lawyer. They didn't continue the restraining order. And the bailiff came out with me and said, you're going to have to get a gun. If you have Jay White as the other person, you're never going to be protected. The bailiff said that to me.
Wow. They know. Yeah, of course they know. They always know. They back and they watch this stuff happen all day long. And, you know, because I've court watched judges all over this country for 15 years now, I've seen, you know, like I watch the bailiffs and so on, and I watch their expressions, and I talk to them throughout, you know, and I'm like, how do you do this job? And how do you sit here and just like do this to people? I don't even understand. I can sit here and do this to people and get paid to do this to people, you know, like to do the bidding of somebody who's rendering orders that are harmful, detrimental to the lives of families. And they just look at you. They don't really say much, but they know, because they'll tell you, you know, yes, this is wrong and that's wrong and this is wrong. And I see it every day. Well, why don't you all come together and start to stand up and rise up and, you know, have a spine and have a conscience and do the right thing. Stop allowing it, you know.
Amen.
And disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting, but you know, yeah. Terrible.
I mean, the problem is even your own family, like, they think that I maybe would have been heard on October 25th. They wouldn't have continued it till February, whatever, if I just hush, if I just be quiet. So the thing is don't go and be interviewed. Don't tell about your story. Don't tell your side, because that makes you look crazy. That's my own family is saying that to me. So the problem is that society, it's like your kid is being bullied in school. Okay. And you're going to school and you're being bullied, and every day they're coming home crying and they're upset and they don't want to go back to school. So if your kid came home and they told you that, right? And you told them, stop crying, don't talk about it, and don't say anything else, just keep going to school and don't ever speak about it again, and just deal with it. If you said that to them, right? Would you do that to your child? No. But they do. No. That's what the world is doing, especially to adults. Like, 100. Just let them keep bullying you. Just let them keep beating you up. Just let them keep trying to take your money. Let them keep trying to take your kids. Let them just keep doing whatever they want to you. That's what your own family will tell you. They would stop if you just shut up. If you stop talking, they would stop.
I mean, if that's not gaslighting, I don't know what is. And any good psychologist worth their salt is going to tell you, you know, not to do that. Like we see like a little girl, like if she's being molested, and then like the person that's doing it to her is telling her to be silent about it, or that's exactly what a bully does in school. Don't talk about what I'm doing to you. But I have to tell you though, Amy, like, and I've been doing this for a number of years, and, you know, Slam the Gavel is exposing multiple stories. More people are speaking out than aren't now. It's definitely helpful. You're better off. There's very few cases that I'll tell them, don't say anything yet. You know, after just using a lot of wisdom maybe with certain types of cases, but for the majority of cases, get your voice out, get your word out there, let them see it. There's multi-millions of people that agree that the family court is a disaster, okay, that child protective predator pedophilia services is a corrupt child trafficking industry. People know that. It's finally making the news, even using the terminology child trafficking industry.
Mhm.
Right.
John Walsh.
Lethal abuse.
Yeah, wake up and smell the coffee. John Walsh did not rise to international fame because his child was taken. Okay. That's an open case till this very day. I've interviewed Megan numerous times. Um, there's so much behind that. It's total child trafficking. Okay. And it's not just child trafficking, which is horrible. It's satanic ritual abuse, pedophilia, child trafficking. And these are the gateway doors. And I don't do drugs. I don't drink alcohol.
Mhm.
I live a very moral life, and I think I'm a
Me
fairly
too.
human being. And I am not some crazy person out there. And I have been exposing stories for a number of years. We're looking at the intricacies of the corruption within this entire system. It is not a broken system. It was built to do this.
Mhm.
Okay. And there are narratives out there. As a matter of fact, interestingly enough, I talked to someone earlier today and I was trying to explain to him the fathersrights.gov. And I went back to look for the website and it is now gone. They've scrubbed it. Okay. And he said, no, I don't see that website. And I went and looked after we hung up and it is not there anymore. So I've exposed the fathersrights.gov to the point where they scrubbed the website off of online. And what I try to tell good dads out there, I try to tell you, you're never going to get help from the fathers' rights movement. They're only there to support abusive fathers, and that is in the court system. And it's all, listen, we're all Christians here. We believe very much in the order of family, husband, wife. We believe in God as a man. We believe in all of that. Okay. We believe we are equal and God loves us both, male and female. We're not going into any weirdness. I'm saying that I believe in the sanctity of the covenant of marriage very much. Okay, that is my heartbeat. That is God's heartbeat from Genesis to Revelation. He starts with a marriage, he ends with a marriage. We believe in all of that. We're not anti men. We don't hate men, nothing like that. But there's a lot of false narrative out there, major false narrative out there. The fatherless home, and it sounds so good
Mhm.
to us. It's a humanistic lie, and it's very dangerous to have a motherless home. And clear
Yeah.
signs of a man. The first red flag I have is when they try to take full custody from a mother.
Right.
Okay, you know right away that is, they're an abuser. I've had dads I know personally for years since childhood. And I know one particular story, I kind of tell it a lot, where this father was in tears because the mother was on drugs, the mother was in and out of jail, and it literally broke him to have to keep those children from her. But he did it with safeguarding, and he was a lovely male father, man, born a man, is a man, and it broke him. Okay, he didn't want to take those children from her. Okay, he didn't have a choice. But a beautiful thing happened in their marriage, which is also led by God, is that she's free today and they have a beautiful, beautiful testimony and happy together marriage. So he stood by her, he prayed for her, and God's seen them through. Okay. I'm all for that happening, restoration of the covenant
Right.
marriage. So don't anybody tell me I'm a man hater because it's a laughable. You don't know my heart and soul. Um,
Yeah.
I think I'm an open book, but I am very favorable to women and children, and I always will be. And I had to learn the hard way a couple of years ago. There is a family rights movement out there. There's a troll movement out there. There's a father's rights movement out there that will never help a good dad. They only support the abuser, a genuine abuser. I'm talking molesters, rapists, you name it, physical abusers. We just, Tommy Valpa's father was just convicted of murder yesterday. Thank God, in New
Yes.
York. Look that
Yeah.
up and so on and so forth. You'll see me on the cover of like every single newspaper down there screaming. They got video of me screaming because I'm like, don't act like this is the first time. This is not a first time.
Mhm.
This is an ongoing time. And then they hid everything. They hid the cameras in the house. They hid the pedophilia and the child trafficking that came through that home. They hid the all the major financials that came through. All of that's been hidden. Okay, but the point is that this is what this system favors. There's nothing worse and there's nothing more dangerous than a motherless home.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
nothing worse and nothing more dangerous than a motherless home. Okay. And when I did this a few years ago, equal amounts of women and men, I'm not even joking, and I'm conservatively, at least 80% of these men that came to me turned out to be abusers. Okay. I had an open heart. I fought for them like I fight for anybody until I found out they were abusers, and then they were gone. So we have a whole different scrutiny system now for both women and men. And that's why I take anybody as my clients. I'm not here for money. Um, and, um, and and Amy knows, first you get an intake, then you get a consultation. I'm vetting you just as much as you're vetting me. And when I take you now, and less men are coming to me now. Isn't that funny? Because there's in the family court system, their bread and butter is abuser, narcissist, or the combination of two. Okay. And genuinely speaking, and I don't want to hurt any man's feelings, I have lovely fathers, husbands, uncles, cousins that are male that I adore with everything in me and my family, that are real men in my family. Okay. And that are pastors, and you name it. In the family court system, it caters to abusive fathers, period.
Right.
And that's why you go to legislators. If you speak to legislators and they hear the buzzword, I'm here because that's about fathers, they're gonna do everything they can to help you, because this is a father's rights movement. It is. Okay.
The problem is, though, that the abusers, once the kids are older, are turning the kids into abusers. So that's the biggest issue. So I didn't believe that, 12 years ago when I actually met Amy Betts, which was in Adalie's Rights with me, in a domestic violence class. And there's a lot of people in our class that were the women that their kids were older and they had been stay-at-home moms, and now they didn't have their kids at all. Even one of them was beaten almost to death into the ICU by her husband and the kid together. Okay. And she didn't have her kid when the husband and the kid together almost killed her. Okay. And she said, I couldn't put my son in jail. So I can't say that only him was doing, you know what I mean? So it was almost like she had to take the blame for her own abuse. Like, oh, I just fell down the stairs, or, oh, I just did this, so that the problem is like my ex-husband is literally trying to take the faith from my older 4 kids. Okay. Especially with COVID, he just started poking in there. Like if this COVID situation is going on, there is no God. Right. So then they started to think, oh, maybe mommy is crazy. Maybe all this stuff mommy told me about God wasn't real. And then that's when when you get off the board of faith, right? Then that's when you start acting like a narcissist. You start in your own head, you start thinking these bad thoughts that your dad had told you over and over and over again for, decades. Your mom is crazy. Your mom is this. Your mom is horrible. Your mom is this. Your mom is that. Over and over and over again. Then they well, maybe mom is bad. Maybe mommy is the one that's bad. So they start to believe it. And then if you don't do exactly what they don't want you to do, or want you to do, they start attacking you just like they did, verbally calling you crazy, verbally, maybe even physically attacking you, which I've had off and on happen to me with the oldest one, even over a cell phone, and then acting like you're the one that's the problem. Like I'm trying to control this behavior. Like I'm trying to tell you, we're all going to the, to the church, and you're getting in the shower, and I'm trying to tell you, get out of the shower, and you're physically attacking me, but yet you're telling somebody else that it was opposite. No, like their behavior, it's like a little tiny toddler kicking and screaming. Okay. Right. Yes. And you go to get the toddler, and everybody knows in the grocery store, because it's a toddler, right? It's not your fault. This kid is kicking and screaming, acting ridiculous, and you're having to carry them out as they're acting like that because they didn't get their candy bar or whatever it was. But if it's an adult child, a bigger child that does that, right? Because the kid that was doing this to me is bigger than me. If it's an adult child you're trying to stop, then you're the problem.
That's right.
Does that make sense? Like, how do you even deal with that at that point? Like,
that's right.
My rule has been like, okay, well, if you're going to behave this way, you're not going to be able to come to my house until like, this one's almost 18. Right. So like, until you behave, because I don't want my other kids acting like that to me. So
Right. Thinking that this is condoned behavior. Right.
But
It's
then it's exactly giving my ex-husband exactly what he wants, because he wants me to not want her here.
right.
Okay.
Right.
So it's like, I feel like I'm in the middle of this horrible scene, where she's still like seeing us, like she's still seeing it. This is just a couple week period of time, but she's still seeing us like outside of my house. But the thing is we are constantly praying in this house. It is so strong, the cloud of prayer, that if you're going to walk into this and you're living in sin, you're not even going to be able to stand in my house. You literally are going to have to run to the street. Okay. And so the other kids feel the peace, there's 5 out of the 6, but that one is like, I can't even handle being in her house because it's bringing up all the bad stuff. She's not a bad person.
Right.
She's got to deal with all this stuff going inside of her. That, the truth is, I'm not saying her dad is bad. The devil is bad, and the devil influences people to act bad. Okay. That little angel and that little devil, it's a true thing, but one is flesh. One is flesh and one is the spirit. The flesh is going to have you act like in a demonic way, in a bad way. Right. And if you listen to your spirit, you're going to act in a good way, in a positive way. And the more I'm praying, okay, the more people that come around me, I don't care if they're out in the grocery store looking. I mean, my husband is a very big man of God. They'll open their eyes looking at me like they're terrified of me because of the spirit of just prayer. So that's why Jay White's so crazy around me. I mean, he literally can't even stand to be in my presence. Okay. So
where they can't you're like, when I didn't know what was really going on, like, have you ever had that happen where you just, why are they treating me this way? Now I know. But it was like, well, what the heck did I do? Like, what did I do? You don't even realize, what you carry. It's amazing, really is. But
well, Fran, when you were talking about like the father's rights, there's still a fathersrights.org.
There's a fathersrights.org, but there was a fathersrights.gov, and I went to look and it's scrubbed. I know it because I was on it. I read it. I went through it. I've seen it. I've seen billboards that say fathersrights.gov. I've seen billboards.
Gone.
I literally, right before this interview, went and looked for it because I had other stuff going on, and it's gone. I mean, unless somebody can find it, it's gone. And I've talked about this on my broadcast, and I know others have too. And I went back to look and it was gone. But I mean, the point is, even if they've taken it away to hide it, it's infiltrated through the family rights movement. So you have Dr. Ben Carson, who's a lovely man of God, but he says things like, he's talking this lie, which is not true. And there's a difference between statistics and truth even. Okay. And there's genuine, don't get me wrong. And there's, social science research and so on and so forth. But he speaks this lie and this irks me to no end. And of course, people are going to listen to him because we do respect him. I respect him highly. Okay. As a man of God, I respect him as an amazing surgeon who separated the twins from their heads. He's an amazing person, but he's convinced, and so are many churches, that they're doing the right thing when they're not. Okay. And isn't that how the devil works? Did not God say such and such and such from the beginning? Did God? He twisted just so much. And if you're not discerning, you miss it. Well, he's like, the fatherless home. And what happens is every child becomes incarcerated. They can't read. They plant this horrible seed, and you're leaving out the fact that 50-50 custody is so dangerous in an abusive home, and children fare a million times better in one parent household, safe, secure, consistent, disciplined, properly homes, and they can excel in all aspects of life, and they do. So don't preach this narrative, because it's a horrible negative narrative. And within the mother homes, that there are single moms that do phenomenal jobs, and they are amazing women that are articulate and intelligent, and they're able to watch kids and have them on their hip and go to work full time and do everything, fry it up in a pan and do it all. Okay. CEOs of companies and do amazing things and carry the faith of God in them and infiltrate this world in a positive way. And you're saying their kids are going to end up in jail and they're going to kill somebody and they're going to do all this stuff. No, that is not true. If I have to sit on my child and stop drugs from happening, I will do that. I will do whatever it takes. I will not allow that system to win in any way, shape, or form. I will do everything I have to do as a warrior. I will do everything under God that I have to do.
But
So
the problem is the kids, the dads, they take the kids, give them no rules, let them, do whatever in their house, whether it's drugs, sex, whatever, because they're their friend. And then we're the bad guy because we said no.
For discipline and boundaries. Yeah.
Also, I think another big problem, I don't know if you've heard of the book, Screw the Bitch. It's on Amazon.
No, but I will.
Oh yeah. And the author, I think, used a different name. He went under some pen name. This is not the guy, whatever. But he wrote how to go through divorce court and screw the bitch.
Wow.
So why can't we get this book taken down?
It should be down. It should be down. How come there's no cancel culture on that book? How come that's okay? That says a lot to me right there. That says a lot to me. We're going to cancel all this stuff that's truth speaking, but we're not going to cancel that. But we're going to talk about how we're so pro women. But we know, I live in New York State. There's nothing pro women about this state. It's anti-child, anti-woman, very clearly. Okay, they can put every ribbon they want to put up, and you can hang yourself with those ribbons because it's a bunch of nonsense. It's a bunch of nonsense. Okay, so yeah, and that book should never be up. Oh my goodness, if somebody said something about, I won't even say something else, you're canceled. You're canceled for telling the truth. But if you say something like that, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Terrible.
That's terrible. The problem with the world is that I even have a friend at my church that, it says you put your hand on the Bible and say to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the court. So it's supposed to be biblically based, and you're supposed to be. I honestly want to tell the liars on the court stand that are lying and tell them to start opening up the Bible and say, read here where it says that if you lie, you're going to be cursed. Sin leads to death, all this kind of stuff, because this is what's going to happen to you for lying. God doesn't give you a high five and you don't keep getting away with stuff. Just like Marianne said, her judge died. God vindicates in a bigger way than we could ever vindicate. Right. So the problem, I forgot where I was leading to, but
the book we were talking about that book, and you were
or the Bible.
The Bible.
Yeah, I was talking about the Bible. Okay. But the kids are told that the Bible isn't true and what your mom says isn't true. Okay. The Bible, literally his parents or their grandparents said it was just a coffee table decoration, of just like stories. So when you have one whole side of your family saying stuff like that, and then, of course, the only reason they have anything to say that I'm crazy, even my own family, any person in my life, only reason they ever just have anything to say that I'm crazy is because I believe in God and because I stand up for the truth. And when you're walking in sin and living in sin, and I'm going to tell you, no, that's not right, this is the truth, then you're going to be pissed and say, oh, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. That's not how that's the world decides a different set of rules, right? But in the court, you're putting your hand on the Bible, swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth. This justice system was supposed to be set on that. There's judges. There's judges that were brought up in the Bible to rule. There were people that are, ungodly, but then God still uses them to do justice, right? There's people that are surgeons and they might not even be a godly person or know God, but yet God uses their hands to, save people's lives. Well, God can use an unjust judge to put justice in the court system. And we're going to command, because with the authority of the Lord Jesus Christ and the unity that we have together, we're going to command justice in all these court systems. And I think we need to call right now there's a 7-day prayer for Sean Fuchette is doing it, and Daniel Adams. So for praying in the people that are over the government for elections, we need to call in something like that around the clock for
And
justice. If we could get that many people call in for, you know, an 8-hour period of time telling their story, give every single person 7 minutes to pray.
that's right. I love
Next person on, next person on for 24 hours for 7 days straight. Every single person do that. And see what, and we all stand with the same alignment. We stand with the same unity. We stand with the same thing. You see what God does.
I love it.
He asked us to pray. We have to pray. We have to pray to get what we want. It doesn't just happen.
This demonic system, which is what the whole thing is, and the deception in the 501c3 churches that tell people that the government, you know, that we're supposed to bow down to the government because they're misinterpreting what the Bible actually does say, and thinking that people are supposed to bow down to this when you never were supposed to. Paul never did. Jesus never did. Like, that's not the truth. You're reading one scripture and you're making a whole theology out of it. The government is completely separate from God. It says we're not supposed to serve two masters. You either believe in one or the other, not both, or I'll spew you out of my mouth. So we have authority when we go into these courts. If you're standing right before the Lord, that's why I tell people all the time. We talked about it last night in the prayer call. If you're right with the Lord, the enemy has nothing in you. Okay. And if the enemy has nothing in you, he doesn't have the same hold on you in these courts. We have the authority in these fake courts. They do not. And that's when you start to see more and more authority being activated in these fake court systems. But we got to call it what it is, though. You can't pretend that they work, because they don't. They do not.
I know what it was that I was trying to say about my church member. They had their counselor is going. So what's happening even in the school system, the counselors are going in, speaking to these children and saying they get to decide if they're he, she, it, whatever. And literally when the girl went in with the counselor to say that my mom says I'm going to hell if I do this, you know, instead of saying the Bible says. I want my kids to say the Bible says. I have my 10-year-old would say the Bible says I'm going to hell if I do this. Like, she knows the Bible says that. It's not what mom says, right? But the girl went in and said my mom said this, and the counselor literally said to her, it doesn't matter what your mom says. It doesn't matter what she said the Bible says. It matters what you want. This world is what you want. You get to decide what you want. You get to decide what you want to be. That is evil. That is demonic. That is not of God. And that needs to end. And these people like Jay White are over the school board. Okay. Yeah. He's over the school board allowing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, if you don't know what you are, anybody that takes a blood test, they'll tell you. The blood test will tell you what you are. Go by the blood test is what I say. You want to trust the science. I fully agree with you. Go trust the science and go take a blood test, and the blood test will tell you what you are. That's it. Leave it at that. Don't even do it anything else. Just take a blood test. You trust the science. Take a blood test. That's it.
That's it. And now you can even draw blood when you're pregnant and see if you have a boys or girls, or like if you have twins, they can say you're having a boy and a girl, or two boys, or whatever. It just by a blood test instead of an ultrasound.
Yeah, you don't even look at body parts. Just take a blood test.
Most definitely.
That's true.
I'm so glad I had you both on. Is there anything else either of you would like to add?
Anything?
I think you should talk about the Punish for Protecting.
Oh, yes. Your book.
Oh, sure. I can talk about that. I have a nonprofit 501c4. It's called Punish for Protecting Incorporated. And I have a book. Oh, look at that. It just showed up in my hand. I have a book, Punish for Protecting the Injustice System of Family Court. And it's, it was published a few years ago, and it has actually become an international bestseller. It was a bestseller here for 2 times so far. There are some really good bits and nuggets in this. It talks about my case and what happened. At the back of the book, it gives us a lot of law regarding your protective rights, what your rights always were. And I'm also working on 2 more story books that I'm inundated with people, so I haven't been able to finish, but there's going to be a sequel to this, because this actually did lean on reform, because obviously when you started out 15 years ago, you thought you could reform Satan and Hitler, and I learned you cannot reform Satan and Hitler. So there's a little bit about reform in there, but everybody knows me that I'm the abolish person, abolish arrest. So in the new book, which is Punish No More and Free to Protect, that's going to talk about the abolishing and the treason and so on and so forth, Title 18, sections 241 and 2. And then I have another book that I'm still working on. It's coming together, and it's called I Survived a Narcissist, You Can Too. But it's relative relationship in families, relationships that you've gotten in relationship to the court, because the judges are majority are very serious narcissists. You can't do the job and not be a narcissist, because empathy is the opposite of a narcissist.
Right.
And if you allow this to happen to families, you're destroying our country from within, and you are clearly a narcissist. So they're very much hand in hand. But if anybody needs help too, there's a section in my website which has lots and lots of encouraging testimonies from children, from families, kids being returned, kids not being taken, kids being kept safe. All through it. You can go to the YouTube channel by clicking on it, Punished for Protecting website, which is punished for being a parent.com. Lots of info there. You can click all through it. And you can also go to the Book a Talk link, and my assistant will schedule an initial consultation, which starts with an initial intake from an intake specialist. And then we go from there. So
That's awesome. I'm so glad.
Thank you.
I wish I would have known you in 2015. Where were
Yes.
you?
That's what you said the other day in court. I wish you were here like a few years back.
Yes. Yeah.
It's, yeah, I know. Me too. I wish I knew somebody like me back then when I went through the hell.
Right.
I didn't. I did.
I said to Marianne, where you said that Hannah's a lot like you, I said, Marianne, you're so much like me. Even the stuff that we like horses and, you know, all the stuff, music and things like that. And then up to even our stories are so similar, and nursing and all our background. We were just like, oh my gosh, we're the same person.
Yeah.
And Mary, I gotta tell you, I love your voice, and like you do such a great job on this on Slam the Gavel. I love the name of it.
Oh, thank you.
I just love, you're doing such a great job, and you got such a great radio voice. It's just, you're perfect for this job. God put the right person. He knew what he was doing.
I think so. And I thank you for saying that, because I hate my voice.
Oh no, I love it.
We like it.
I love her voice. It's like soothing, but it's very radio, you know. It's like you're really good at this. Really good.
Thank you. I totally appreciate that. And I'll be talking to you, Fran, and your friend Hannah this week too. So, well, I'm going, don't jump off. Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I am your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again here with Fran and Amy here in the future, and other guests. So thank you so much for popping on.
Thank you so much. I love it.
Definitely. You'll be back.